some of the adaptations they have to help them thrive in their natural habitat. Now, as we can already very clearly see to the left here, these savannas are going to be very big and very diverse areas with a ton of different animals living out there. And all of them are going to have their own special tricks and adaptations for survival, which we'll try to talk about as we make our way around today, including with those rhinos, giraffes, antelope, buffalo, zebra, and so many other animals who are all going to be living out there together. Now, of course, we do have quite a few of those animals in this field, but the majority of them are a bit behind us right now. But don't worry, we're going to be trying to get our better views of the animals in this field as we come back this way a little later in our tour. For the time being, we're going to keep rolling along since we still got so much more to see and so much more ground to cover, including with our next big group to talk about coming up on the right here with a bunch of our greater flamingo. Now, girl, there are only two left, and they're both female. But here at the safari park, we have what we call our frozen zoo, which is a collection of genetic material from hundreds of different animals, including the northern white rhino. And we're going to be able to use some of our southern white rhinos to help be surrogate parents as we breed some new northern white rhinos. We're helping lead the charge on this and are working very hard to try to keep them from disappearing. Now we'll get back to those rhinos in a bit here, but we got plenty of others we're going to be seeing in this big South African habitat to the left here too, which is going to be home to many other big groups out here, all very used to these wide open grasslands and savannas, and also used to not having many places to hide, just like in their natural homes. So, for the animals that do live out on the savanna, they're usually going to be staying together in really big groups out there so that they have better safety in numbers. And here we're going to be switching back over to some of our bigger mammals out here, including a ton of those antelope, which we'll be seeing a lot of today since there are a lot of them in Africa. In fact, there are over 70 different types out there, all with their own special tricks for survival. We've got a rather unique one on the left here, actually, with some of our Ellipsan waterbuck. They're going to be an antelope that's spending most of their time in and around the water. They're actually going to be amazing swimmers. So if they run into any trouble out here, they're probably just going to run straight for that water to outswim anything that might be after them. Looks like we also got a peek at some of our Sommerings gazelle on the other side there as well. Those little tan antelope who are going to blend in very nicely with these sandy and rocky areas that they like to live in. Now, I'm going to keep rolling along though because we've certainly got many more to go, and of course a whole bunch of other tricks that these animals are going to be using for their survival. For example, up there on the hillside to the left, it looks like we got a great view of the largest antelope out here, the Patterson's eland. Now, those eland are actually going to be getting up to 2,000 pounds at their full size. So in their case, that's all the protection they're going to need. And the only things that'll likely ever mess with them are maybe the lions. Now, of course, size is an excellent trick for staying safe out here for a lot of animals, because of course if they're too big for any predators to mess with, then that's certainly an excellent way for keeping themselves safe, and that is certainly going to be the case for the tallest animals on the savanna, which is going to be our first tower of giraffe. Because yes, tower is actually what you call a group of giraffes. Now, for these giraffes, that height of theirs is going to be super important to actually not just them, but to everybody else that lives out here too. Because they're going to use that not only to reach way up into those trees to grab those branches and leaves that only they can get to, but to also be the natural lookouts out on the savanna as well. Now, those giraffes actually have an amazing set of eyes, and with them, they're actually going to be able to spot movement and predators up to 2 miles away out there.
Whoa.
So a lot of the others are usually going to stay within eyesight of the giraffe, using them as the watchtowers. Of course, if any of those giraffes do happen to see something out there and start running, then you can pretty much guarantee that everybody else is probably going to run too. Now, when it comes to life out here, we've definitely covered a couple different tricks for survival so far, but there are probably 5 of them in particular that are the most common, and we've already highlighted 2 of them very nicely with the size and those big groups for safety out here. But we're just about to add on our next one as well, which is going to be intimidation. And we've got a bunch of excellent animals to show that off, including some of our sable antelope over there by those giraffe as well. Those dark chocolate brown antelope with the long curved horns. Now, of course, they've definitely got those huge horns and actually a couple different markings along their face and other parts of their bodies that are going to make them stand out as something that shouldn't be messed with. But a fun thing to mention is that those sable, and actually almost all the animals we're seeing out here, are actually all girls. And even a lot of the females still have those nice big horns they're going to use to protect themselves and defend their territory. Now, that is also going to be the case for our next big group here, who's going to be rather different than anyone else with our Cape buffalo. Now, they're going to be another one of those big animals out here that most predators know not to mess with, and not just because of the size, but because they fight back against anything that messes with them, including even the lions. They're going to be doing that especially when they're protecting their young ones, who they're going to keep wrapped in the middle of those big circles. And those buffalo are really good at what they do. In fact, they're actually considered the 2nd deadliest animal in Africa behind the hippo. So it's usually a pretty good idea to give them plenty of space so they don't feel threatened. Now, we do have a bit of a calmer animal up there on the hillside to the right as well, with some of our Somali wild ass. Now we got one more down at this end of the valley too, with a similar color on the left here, with our Hemsbach or Gemsbach. Those bright silver antelope with the really long horns. Those really pretty markings all over their body. Now, I personally consider them one of our most handsome antelope out here, but beauty's not what they're going for, as that's actually kind of like a full body war paint for them, to really let the others out here know that they are quite capable of defending themselves. They'll fight back if they need to. But as we keep moving along here, we're actually going to be taking a quick break from the savannah as we start making our way up the hill into our forests and wetlands of our Central African habitat. So we're going to want to keep our eyes to the left for now, watching for some of the animals that may be hanging out under some of these trees or on the hillsides across from us. Now, when it comes to life in the forest, things are going to be a little different than the savannah, since the animals living out here aren't going to be using those same big groups, but instead trying to blend in with their surroundings and hide. They've actually got some pretty excellent tricks to help them do that. In fact, they're doing so well we can't even see any of them yet. No, I'm kidding. We do actually have a couple of our roan antelope over there to the other side of the valley, who are going to be a nice big orange antelope with a curved set of horns, just like some of those sable we saw a little bit ago. And actually, they're already helping show off the main form of camouflage for living out here, which is that orange color.
It's so cute.
Which probably doesn't make that much sense, because these roan are really easy for us to see. But that's because they're not using that color to hide from us, but from their predators. Like the lions, leopards, cheetahs, and hyenas, who are all going to see in black and white or shades of gray. So to them, that orange is actually going to be very similar to the green of the forest around them. If you ever want to test it out for yourself, you can always set your phone to black and white mode or edit any of the photos that you take out here today in the black and white to get a pretty good idea what those predators are seeing and just how well these animals blend in with their surroundings. Now, we do have some more of those orange antelope hanging out to the right there as well, but the majority of them have kind of tucked themselves away further up along the fence line or under some of those trees a bit further back. But you might just be able to spot one of our Sitatunga ahead of us in the shade of those trees. Another small orange antelope with some white stripes running down its side. But I think I'm going to keep rolling along here so we can try to get some of those better views, including those roan who are going to be right here next to us on the left as we run around the corner here. Now, I mentioned a little earlier in our tour that we've been seeing a lot of girls so far, but here in the forest we do have quite a few boys too, including all of these roan antelopes and another pair of boys we're going to see in just a moment here. And when the boys are all hanging out together like this, it's actually called a bachelor herd, which is what you get when you have a bunch of those younger males all sticking together to protect each other. Well, they wait for a chance to meet some ladies, just like they would out in the wild. Now, these roan do definitely live out here, but as you can see, they're an animal pretty well adapted to most of those big survival strategies, also having the size, the intimidation, and those group traits on lock as well. So they actually live in many different parts of Africa. But actually our next big animal ahead of us here is one that doesn't belong in the forest, which is going to be our striped friends down in the shade of the middle of the valley there, our two male Grevy's zebra. Now those zebra are going to be another one of those animals that usually have their own huge groups out there on the savannah. But they're actually another animal that's trying their best to blend in with each other using those stripes. You can kind of imagine that when a ton of those zebra are next to each other, it's just going to be one big blob of stripes. Something that most predators are probably going to think twice about messing with, unless they can find something to split off on their own. We've also got quite a few of our Ugandan cob there as well. Those other bright orange antelope trying their best to blend in on that green hillside there. And of course, thanks to all our friends in the forest here, we can definitely add another one of those tricks to our list with camouflage, being another one of those tools that just about everybody out here is going to be using in one way or another. But we still got one more trip to go. Whole other parts of Africa we've just barely even touched on. And other ways that some of these tricks can be used. For example, we've certainly been mentioning how size is an excellent tool to keep predators away. But the bigger some of these predators get, the more food they're going to need to eat to support themselves. And for those that aren't the giraffes or the elephants, then most others out here are going to have diets of mostly grass. So for them, they're going to be spending a good portion of their day usually roaming around, making sure they can find enough food for not only themselves, but for everybody else in those big groups of theirs as well. And maybe even needing a little competition to make sure they can get enough food and water if those supplies might be limited. And of course, some animals are not going to be all that great when it comes to that kind of intimidation factor, especially for these teeny little South African springbok on the left here. So for those smaller antelope, they're often going to be relying on our last big trick, which is speed. And also a bit of jumping to help make it even more effective. What they do is actually called pronking, We will keep them apart until they're ready to make sure they also have a great genetic match for the healthiest kids possible. We'll even trade a lot of our animals here to other zoos all across the country to make sure they're able to get those great matches. Of course, we do still have those giraffes hanging out down in the valley there, and I imagine we're going to be getting a nice close look at these eland as we round the corner here as well, really giving us an excellent size comparison from those teeny little springbok to these very big boys up here. Or should I say, mostly girls once again, because, yeah, once again, this group is almost entirely girls, with maybe one or two boys who are mixed in there as well, and actually a couple of our male lowland Nyala who have kind of picked out a spot among that group as well. One of the antelope that would normally be out in the forest there with their own set of white stripes. But of course, most of those boys, like I said, are either mixed in or purposely split up from the rest, just like these two here. We have a couple different reasons why we typically separate the genders, with the main one being, this is exactly how they'd be living in the wild. Just like I was mentioning with those boys in the forest, a lot of the time the males will be off on their own in their bachelor herds, while the females and kids stay together in their much bigger groups, along with some of the older males to keep them safe. Now, here at the safari park, though, we support those huge groups of theirs. And that's certainly going to be including some of our big friends ahead of us, like those giraffes, but also a little tiny gazelle and impala hanging out in the shade of the tree over there. There are going to be two more of those very speedy antelope, especially since they're the ones that are probably the most frequently coming up against the cheetah and the other fast predators out there. So they're going to be trying to do everything